Hello there, it's Scully here, the man with two names, and delighted to be talking to you. Now, Image 7, what qualifies as Image 7 has been around for, what do you believe it, 25 years, talking to schools for 24 of those years. We've got a team of over 20 throughout Australia and also now over in Ireland and the UK. So we're here to talk to you specifically to come up with a goal, or rather overcome any issues that you may have in terms of email communications. We know they're important, but how do you make them valuable? How do you really engage that audience and make an impact with them? Well, that's what we're going to do today.
Hi, if you don't know my voice, this is not my normal voice. This is the voice with Brad with a cold. So to start off, many of you will have heard that email is dead. And if you even read august newspapers like the Wall Street Journal, back in October 2009, they were pronouncing email to be dead. And but credit to the Wall Street Journal, they've also since then published stories where they're saying that email is far from dead. But it is changing, and that's really one of the key things that we want to give to you today, and to understand how you can use it best in your school. And this is one of the big things that's changing. We call it the attention economy. But this graph across the bottom, you can see the years from 2005 for the last 10 years. And on the left is the digital information created and shared. And that's measured in zettabytes or zettabytes, and I'm not even sure what it is, but they are big numbers of digital information. And you can see that even in 2009, when email was being pronounced dead because of the rise of social media, it just took off in terms of the information. And that's the if you like, the landscape that your emails have to live and work in. So that's really where we're going today.
So amidst all of that massive information, what do we know? What we do know that email is a preferred mode of consuming information. 77% of consumers in the research we've got here from Waldo Social report they prefer to receive. Now this is the key word, that permission-based email. Now it's the number one source across all age groups to consume that information. So email is a hugely preferred mode of receiving information. And importantly, as on looking at businesses, including schools, 64% of companies indicate their investment in email marketing is expected to increase now. So that means a third aren't. So what are they doing? It's massively important. It's getting more and more important. So make sure you're on the bandwagon. It's such an important skill to grasp because it works so hard for you. That is probably a sad reflection on society, the fact that actually 58% of adults check their email first thing in the morning. Now, I don't know if that's once or 5 times like my tragic case, but importantly, people are checking their emails, so it's a way to get through to people, a vital tool for you.
So, Scully, I want to know what the other 42% who aren't checking their email first thing in the morning and they actually wait till they get to work to check their email. I mean, Luddites. But seriously, it's a big thing. But this, if you condense those indicator numbers down into one memorable number, this would be the one, is that 91% of people check their email every day. And that makes it far and away the most checked of any communication methodology that you can have. Now, just to go off on a really quick little rant here, for those of you who regularly listen to the SMC School Marketing Communications podcast, or even read the blogs, we often talk about building your house, meaning your major communications platform, on rented land. So in other words, the downsides of entrusting your major media property being with somebody like Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter or anybody, because that's their property. It's not yours. Your website is the property that you own. Well, we feel very much the same about it with email. Email, having the permission to send somebody an email, is like digital currency. It's like people handing you dollar bills. if there was such a thing anymore. $1 coins in Australia for our US listeners. But today our goal was to establish the value of email. I think we've done that. Now, the 3 remaining goals to talk about why Batch and Blast is over, common e-newsletter mistakes, and how to use email to engage. We've worked that, and we think the best way to cover those is by talking about what makes an engaging email. And the answer to that is really broken up into 3 parts, and we're going to dive into each of these 3 parts somewhat more deeply. But number 1 is that the emails are trusted. Number 2 is that they are always relevant. And number 3 is that you're working from a conversation rather than a campaign mindset.
So first of all, let's have a look at that trust word, such an important word. It's all about your own credibility with your audience. So first point we're going to look at is that opt-in, opt-out, opt-inability factor. And then it's spam, incredibly important. And we all get an awful lot of it, don't we? Then list hygiene, not personal hygiene, list hygiene. That means about your the cleanliness of the list that you're sending to. You're not sending to the wrong people. And then deliverability, making sure it gets through. The best email you have actually gets through to the audience that you want it to get to.
Now, we would imagine in terms of opt-in, if you're not familiar with the phrase opt-in, it just quite simply means that somebody actually makes a conscious decision to receive your emails. Now, in schools, most of us would believe that parents opt in when they enrol their child. Well, yes, but do they really? My reason for saying that is that they would absolutely expect that you send transactional important pieces of information to them by email. But do they opt into all the other things that schools want to be able to send? And good schools should be able to send to parents. That's a question that you need to think about and discuss. Prospective parents absolutely need to fully opt in. Just because a prospective parent has put their hand up and said, "Can I have some information?" or something like that, isn't enough to give them for them to have given you legally the permission to send them emails. So be very clear on who has opted in, who has opted out, and to what sort of emails.
We get onto the that spam word. Now, we all like to think, certainly there are many members of the teaching fraternity who couldn't imagine that anyone wouldn't want to read what they send them. But look, it's so important. Don't send an unwanted email. Now, what's the definition of that? Well, it's not your definition. It's the definition of the receiver. It's in the eyes of the receiver. So whether they want to read it or not is up to them. So think about it from their point of view. Now, it's a unique opportunity, really, with your daily or however weekly emails to build a trust and a real rapport. Equally, it can erode it. So don't spam. Don't destroy the relationship you're building with your parents, with your broader community, whoever it is that you're communicating with. And there is legislation. It's not just a matter of judgment. It's not just a matter of what you think spam or others may think is spam. Don't ignore that legislation. You can find it quite easily online, wherever you're based, Australia, New Zealand, or Europe, North America, wherever it may be. There are certain absolute must-dos: identifying yourself as the sender, obtaining consent, and really, really important, ensuring the unsubscribability from your site. So that legislation is important, and yes, it applies to you the same as it applies to everyone else.
Now, I'm into big numbers today, and this is a study of 20 trillion emails, believe it or not, 20 trillion emails. And of those 20 trillion emails, 85% have been marked as spam by the various spam catching software that are in the email chain. So the reason I tell you that is quite simply to expect somewhere along the line that in that big vast number, and the fact that 85% of emails are stopped as spam even before they get to you, expect that some of your emails somewhere along the line are going to be marked as spam. On the flip side, Also, don't think too harshly of some of those emails which are spam and get through to your inbox, because the smarts of the email delivery system in terms of spam catching are pretty fantastic and pretty vast. Now, list hygiene. Your sender reputation is critical. Now, here we're not talking about your reputation as a school or indeed your individual reputation. We're talking about the reputation of your, if you like, the sending technology, the computer, the server that sends your email. Because if that server or IP address is known to send lots of spam, then it's highly likely that you're going to get, if you like, filtered more harshly in the whole set of technologies and algorithms that your email goes through to get into the inbox of the person that you're sending it to. So that's really important. We'll talk a little bit later about email service providers. That's a really good way to do that. But even when you do have an email service provider, the need to do a few key things. Regularly resolve bounces. So emails that you send and then bounce back, you get them into your inbox. They fall into two categories: hard bounces and soft bounces. Hard bounces are the ones where the receiving server has refused it, the email address doesn't exist any longer, for instance. And the soft bounces are ones where it's been refused because the receiver's email box might be full, for instance, but the email address still exists. Resolve those, clean up your list. Unsubscribes. If somebody unsubscribes, make sure that you unsubscribe, you take them off your list, and so you don't send them again. Now, the only exception that I can think of to that ever might be in critical emails from your school, which are the critical communications to parents, which by virtue of the fact that they've got their child at your school, they can't unsubscribe from. That's your official channel to tell them. And if any of your emails do get reported as spam, attend to that, clean that up.
So let's presume you've got the most extraordinarily exciting email ready and poised. How do you actually deliver it? That the email deliverability we're talking about. So it's about first step in that is selecting a really good email service provider that Brad just mentioned. Now, I would say it's first, even before you think about that, actually, do not send it from your own Gmail account or your personal email address. It happens so much, but there are so many things that can go wrong, including meaning you end up going offline, that it's not worth it. And depending on the scale of how many emails you're sending out, an email service provider can be so valuable in terms of mobile compatibility, in terms of just making sure everything goes as it should do.
Statistics, indeed.
Indeed. Now, other things to be conscious of. There are certain trigger words never used to get past firewalls. Well, these things change all the time. Free and even big capitals used to get bounced back in the past. Algorithms have developed now, and certain things aren't automatically blocked, but rules change. So keep on top of what is effective, what isn't effective, and again, your service provider can probably help you with that as well. And there are a whole heap of service providers. It's not really, I don't want to endorse one any more than any other, and some are better for bigger organisations and some for smaller, but happy offline to recommend where appropriate, of course. Now, if you can't get your head around still how to actually get things through, get those emails through to your audience, have a look in your own spam folder and have a look what didn't get through. And you'll find that you can probably learn a lot from things that didn't get through your firewall and actually go, oh, we won't do that because it probably won't get through other people's as well. So there's some simple practical ways. Now, relevance. It's always about being relevant. And that content is the key. Being relevant means, of course, first of all, making sure you're talking to the right people. We talked about lists. Saying the right things to those people. and always looking to improve, always trying to do it better and better. Now, what does that mean? How do you know? Simple. We can test, and you can test to improve and get better and better.
So one of the ways to actually be more relevant with the right, talking to the right people, is through segmentation of your list. So if you're not familiar with the term, that just means taking your email list and dividing it up into segments of like people so that you can talk to them, you can communicate better, you can target your communications to smaller, more specific groups. Now, I think in a school that could be based on classes, it could be based on subject selections, it could be based on sporting teams and such like. Lots of different ways you can segment, and it will potentially change. You'll have different segments for different types of communications. But almost by default, segmentation and its practice means that you will achieve higher engagement because you're talking more of the right topic in the right way to the right people. I mean, a fairly typical thing that happens in schools is that a school newsletter is sent, and there's this big long newsletter, either email or, and this absolutely used to happen in hard copy days too, but of, let's talk about pages, but of 10 pages, there was only 1.5 pages which was actually relevant to an individual family. So it's now shown in many studies that the highest return on investment tactic in email is to practice segmentation. Very quickly, this little graph here, won't spend long on it, but across the bottom we've got a whole study of emails delivered, so 100 at the left-hand side through to 100,000 on the right, and it's a logarithmic scale, and the an engagement score devised by Marketo for their email benchmarking study. So of course the engagement there is the higher the number, the better. And you can see the correlation between smaller emails and smaller groups with higher engagement. Now, talking about relevance, this is actually also from Marketo and the way that they explain relevance, and it's just so true that it's beautiful. What we want to say as schools and what our parents are interested in are entirely different things, and usually there's only this small area of intersection, and that is where relevance happens. So just remember that just because you want to say it doesn't mean it makes it relevant to your audience. So let's dive a bit deeper into saying the right things. Well, there's two ways, if you like, two buckets that we can think about saying the right things. It's in the content and it's in the design. And on the content side, first of all, make it human, not a faceless organisation, school. It's from somebody. The school, indeed, in the copywriting should have a voice, have names attached to things. Secondly, make it personalised, so it's going to somebody. Now, schools are like very few other organisations. Most of the time, you absolutely know the names of the people who you are sending the emails to. So why shouldn't it be personalised? And thirdly, something that very few schools do, and largely it's because it's really only recently becoming a something that most credible email service providers would provide, is the use of dynamic content. And dynamic content is quite simply the ability to, within the content, based on a segmentation criteria, to be able to change the content in an email. So think about it in its most simple forms. Perhaps one segmentation is for the junior or primary school, and the second segmentation was for the senior school, and you had a header at the top of your email. Now for the junior school, you could have a header with a picture of the junior school scene, and with the senior school, you could have a picture of the senior school. And immediately that is more relevant because people will see something that they're used to. And that is dynamic content. You can do the same thing with pictures as you can do with copy and such like.
In terms of content, remember, really it's always got to have a purpose. So I'd like you to look at the next 4 points almost as a filter. So everything that leaves your walls. First of all, is that email actually going to solve a problem for someone? Is it going to answer a question, solve a problem? Might it save them money? Could you imagine something like that? That always captures people's imagination, and not just costing money or costing more money. I'll say that's always going to focus the mind. Is it going to make people? Is it really important information? It's going to get people, educate people, if you like, or make them feel smarter, or certainly in relation to the child's education. Is it going to make them feel better informed about something? And beyond that, the next point is it going to entertain? Why can't content be entertaining? Why can't an email have some form of entertainment? It doesn't necessarily have to be humour. Now, ideally, your email will be at least one of these, and if you can incorporate 2 or 3, fantastic. Beyond that, now, there are lots of different types of email content, of course. Transactional, very often, now that might just be an invoice, heaven forbid, a bill or something like that. Well, even that can be used, can be harnessed for communicating better news as well. Maybe promotional. An email can be promotional. For example, you've probably joined us because you received some kind of promotional email about this webinar. It could be an alert about an event that's coming up, or an important piece of news. Likewise, a communication could be a regular e-newsletter, and it could be a reminder about something that's coming up. There are lots of different ways, different types of email, and you can use them all if it's carefully, strategically thought through.
Now, one of the things that actually is super useful in schools is timely content. It's about what is happening now. And one of the things that's been in my mind lately is just Channel 10. For those of you in Australia, MasterChef has finished, and we have the 2015 MasterChef of the Year, but their programming they've been pushing hard to replace it is the Great Australian Spelling Bee. And now what does that mean for your parents? How should they be thinking about it? Do you have a unique point of view or perspective on the fact that here's this game show that is taking little kids into the spotlight and putting them under pressure? Now, not saying that you should have any particular view, but that is a perfect opportunity for your school to be able to harness timely content in a process we often call newsjacking. It's taking news and you're hijacking it for your purposes and making communications around it. So how can you do it? How can you improve? You can always be testing and improving. Subject lines. You can test subject lines and test A against B from the field. Who is going to be there? Who's going to be actually the name that is associated with the email? Because there's lots of trust that goes with that. And we'll talk about it in just a moment, but your design for mobile viewing on mobile devices of your email is critical now. You should be testing. Testing should be a part of your normal procedure for your emails. Because if you stop testing, you're virtually saying you don't want to be improving anymore. Here's a real life test. This one is from Marketo, and they tested from a guy's name, Ryan Hammer, real guy, Marketo, and from Marketo Premium Content. And which one wins? Well, the answer was A. I feel like a bit of a game show host myself now. Version A, the real name, increased opens by 28% and increased the click-through rate by 8%. So really, really significant just by changing the from field on that one. Now, getting back to the mobile viewing, this graph here, right up until a few weeks ago, showing the last data set there is showing June 2015, and it's the last 12 months of the market share for emails based on the device or programming opening them up. And you can see there that the low one, 22%, was emails opened up on the desktop. The orange one is emails opened up in webmail, and the red one at 49% is the emails opened up on mobile devices. Now that's red on mobile devices. There is a lot more. Usually the numbers show about 84% of people are opening emails. So that would be a little bit like me. I will often open an email on my mobile just to see what it is, and then we'll go back and read it later on the desktop. So having your emails that are optimized for mobile viewing is no longer an option. It's no longer a nice thing. Let me be really, really clear about that one. This is a must-do. Conversations, not campaigns.
Yeah, this is a key part now. Campaigns is the old mindset, let's put it that way, of just shouting at people, look at me, you will sit down, you will listen to what I want you to listen to. And that's gone. So that related to the batch and blast idea of just sending out mass emails to the world and his wife. And you know what? That really, at the end of the day, is lazy. It's lazy, blasting the world, and it's the repercussions. We can all see them, we all receive them all the time, and it's damaging. It's damaging. It might feel cheap to just send them out there, but it's not. In fact, it's actually really quite expensive, because it costs you that really intangible and valuable thing, commodity, trust, and credibility to your parent group, to your potential parent group, to your potential audience and community. So you're actually teaching, by blasting these things out, you're teaching people to ignore you at best, if not despise you. So the challenge really is to start a dialogue. That's not the campaign. It's a dialogue, a conversation between you and your audience. So they're actually looking forward to the next contact, because what you're communicating to them is really valuable. It's really important. They rely on it, and they look forward to hearing more from you. So you need to listen to what's coming back, and listen and look at the statistics of who's opening what and how much it's working. And adapting means, via testing, changing your habits to make it work. You're building a relationship with your audience. Now you can go deeper and deeper and get people looking forward to communicating with you, as well as receiving communication from you.
So all of this leads to, how do we measure this? And if we are to engage in testing, how do we do it? Well, there's a few measurement basics, common metrics that we would suggest. And again, most credible email service providers will be able to deliver this information to you at a bare minimum, often a lot more. But number one, emails sent. Fairly obvious number. Number two, the number of emails delivered actually got into the inbox. Number three, the emails that have bounced, and we talked before about hard bounces and soft bounces, and the fact that you need to resolve those and do cleanups. An often measured number, probably close to the most important, is the email open rate. So of the emails delivered, how many of those were actually opened and read? Number five is the click to open rates. So within the email, how many then went on to click on a link and open up a web page or follow a link that's in the email? And number six, the unsubscribe rate. Of course, all of these have, there's many, search online and you'll find many different metrics of people trying to say, here is a good baseline. Now, the simple fact is that there is no good baseline. There is no simple answer to what is a good bounce rate, what is a good open rate, and so on. It will vary from list to list. So the best piece of advice that we can give you is, don't worry too much about the metrics. If you want to get a feel for that, feel free to contact us directly, and we can sort of work through with you and assess your situation and try and give you a good estimation from our experience. But the best thing is to, month by month, look at those and check your rates, and that you're progressing in the right direction, that the trajectory is right, because that is improvement. That is showing that you're moving in the right way. And if you're not moving in the right way, then you actually know enough to do something about it. But they're great metrics to be able to report to your school head. So I'm very conscious we're actually a couple of minutes over time. I want to also give some time for questions. So very quickly, some resources. You can go to image7.com.au/SMC webinar resources, and in a couple of days you'll be able to see a recording of this webinar. Very importantly, you can download What Not to Do email campaign checklist. So you can download that there and as an ebook. And finally, if you want to ask any further questions or even have a longer conversation with us, just have a look at the consultation request and fill that in.
And don't forget some other regular forms of communication. There's our SMC newsletter, our blog, the SMC podcast, and more webinars. So don't forget, have a visit on image7.com.au/SMC webinar resources, which brings us to questions.
Thanks, guys. Well, I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one is from Joanne. How often should I send e-newsletters?
Thanks, Joanne. It's Brad here. That is really a question for testing, but most typically in schools, assuming this is like school newsletter type newsletters by email, I'd suggest weekly or fortnightly. Much longer than that, and our experience is that the content just gets too big because too much is happening in the life of the school. But again, that's a generalisation. Each situation is different. If you were talking about emails to prospective parents to keep them in the loop, and that's absolutely something that we'd be suggesting that you're doing. I would be prospective parents or parents who have enrolled, but the child is not at the school yet. Once a month is probably a good starting point for your thinking there.
Thanks, Brad. I've actually got two questions here from Yvette. The first one is, if there are parents who have students in both junior and the senior school, is it better to have all the information that they need in one email so they receive one lot of communication for both their students in junior or senior school, or should they receive two separate emails, one for junior, one for senior? But this will then obviously increase their email traffic. What's your suggestions?
Hi, Scully here. I would really recommend. We talk personalisation. Let's not put everyone in the same camp, because the junior news is relevant to the junior parent, and that could be relevant to little Johnny, and then there's Sarah in the senior school, and that's relevant to them. Email traffic, in some respects, look, in a massive organisation trying to send out huge volumes of email to buy some consumer product. Yeah, be careful. I wouldn't, in the terms of a school in this instance, be afraid of using two separate emails, clearly defined though as being what they are: one from junior and one from senior.
Not with repeated information.
Yeah. And ideally edit them so they're not duplicating the same information, and that way you can really delight the parent because you've got only the relevant stuff. So personalisation every time.
Thanks, Scully. And Yvette's just got one more question here. We send emails to parents directly from our database, but that does not allow us to get any specs on what is being opened and what's being read. Campaign Monitor concerns me because in their fine print there are issues with their security, and they keep all the data and information about email addresses, etc. Is there a way to track that and cover privacy issues?
Okay, I'm fairly familiar with Campaign Monitor, but not to that level in terms of the privacy, but I would suggest that that's fairly common. The reality is that no email service provider will ever, in fact almost nobody ever offers a cast iron guarantee about security online. Their lawyers wouldn't let them do that. But I would go almost every day to the solution that provides me with the best statistics and the best flexibility. So whether it's Campaign Monitor or another email service provider, and there are many out there, Campaign Monitor, of course, is actually Australian-based. It was founded in Australia, actually, in a suburb of Sydney. But I believe that I think the security or the privacy concerns are relatively small compared to the benefits that you get by being able to pull the statistics and the joys, if you like, of being able to test and respond to the way that people are using your emails.
Thanks, Brad. I've got a question now from Lauren. Lauren's interested to know your thoughts on the stats about email being the preferred method of contact in a school context. Increasingly, Lauren is hearing that parents hate receiving email communication because they feel they're being bombarded, regardless of whether that content is more information-based or more a promotional marketing style.
Okay, Brad here. I would suggest that if anybody is receiving feedback, some feedback that says that they don't like receiving emails, that's because the emails aren't relevant enough. And so it's not email, the channel, that is the issue, it's the content of the emails. So people have been, if you like, burnt a bit or browned off because they have received more and more emails that are not relevant. And that's certainly been our experience, particularly in larger schools, schools with larger student populations and where there's lots going on in the life of the school, that we've got to work with the school to help them pare down the actual number of communications that are going out, because quite literally parents can be bombarded, and we've seen it before where a school might, a typical parent in a school might be getting 10 or 12 emails per day from the school, all well-meaning and useful information, but not necessarily filtered for the best communication in the best way. Scully, you've got?
Yeah, I just think it's really important to try and audit that. It might feel like a really arduous task. We've done it with clients, and yes, the number of communications that may be blasted out from a geography teacher, from whoever it is, trying to take control of that centrally and minimise the what may appear to be important, minimise it so that you get maximum effect.
Thanks, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. As Scully said, if you do think of anything as you're processing this information, please feel free to send us an email to smc@image7.com.au, and we'd be happy to answer them for you or speak to you on the phone. So thank you very much for joining our webinar. I really hope you found it useful. So that's all from us, and bye for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.